Good evening, everyone. We'll call to order the December 2nd, 2021 council meeting. If you plan to speak, if you could get a comment card, which is over by our city clerk, and when you come up, if you could give that to her, we would appreciate it. I would ask that everyone rise for the invocation given by Pastor James Williams of Mount Olive AME Church, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Yes, Pastor, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, to the City Council, and my fellow Clearwater citizens. Thank you for this opportunity. Let us pray. God of grace, God of mercy, God, we come saying thank you. God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather this evening to do the business of our city. God, we acknowledge your presence here tonight among us. God, I pray that you will keep your strong right hand upon our city. God, these are trying times that we are living in. And God, our hearts and prayers are with all those families who have been impacted by this deadly virus. Oh God, continue to keep your eye over our city, and God, our city government. And God, we pray for a productive meeting tonight. Thank you, God, for this opportunity. It's in the matchless name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Williams. Appreciate you being here this evening. I want to introduce the dais. On my far right is our city manager, John Jennings, Vice Mayor Hoyt Hamilton.
Good evening.
Councilmember David Albritton.
Good evening.
Councilmember Kathleen Beckman.
Good evening.
Councilmember Mark Bunker.
Good evening.
And our city attorney, Mr. Margolis.
Good evening.
I'd ask if there are any amendments to the minutes of the November 18th, 2021 meeting. Hearing none, do I have a
Move
motion?
approval of the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. This time we open it up for citizens to be heard. If there are any citizens in the audience that would like to speak to items that are not on the agenda, please come forward. We ask you to respectfully keep your comments to 3 minutes and fill out a comment card. Good evening.
Good evening, Councilman and ma'am. I've never done this before, so I hope you'll understand my not knowing. I came because I was in the military for 27 years. I retired from the Army. I'm saying that because I have PTSD and I'm really trying hard, so I hope you'll be patient with me. I recently purchased property up in Michigan. I live in Clearwater. I own a house in Clearwater. I bought it from my mother, who owned it for 20 years. When I go up there, I was hoping that maybe you could change the position of the utilities, that they shut the water off. I own a pool in my backyard, and that pool requires water during the summertime. And if they shut the water off, then I cannot maintain my pool in any way. So I'm asking you, instead of shutting it off, could they leave it on and make a maximum, or however they want to do it, to where someone who owns a pool doesn't have to pay $110? Because when I'm here, I pay less for my utilities than I do for my Duke Energy. When I'm not here, I pay more, double. Well, not double. It's $110 a month versus my Duke, which is $73 a month. So I guess what I'm asking is, could they do something about that? Because if I didn't have to use the water for my pool, then I would pay $50 a month, but they shut the water off. So when they shut the water off, then I'm basically being penalized. And when I called and asked them about it, they explained to me that I'm actually not using any more than I it's not going to be more than the $50 a month to use the water to fill my pool. So I hope I've addressed you properly, and I thank you, and it's been very hard for me, so
You're fine.
I appreciate it.
If you give your information to Ms. Call, which we need anyway, we will have somebody from customer service get back to you and give you all of the alternatives you have.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
Appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Aaron Smith-Levin. I live at 1615 Harvard Street. I'm here to address some things that were said in Monday's work session. Based on some of the comments, it seems that there may be perhaps a general misunderstanding about why I am running for Clearwater City Council. I am running for Clearwater City Council because Clearwater has a perception problem, and I would like to change that perception. There is a perception about Clearwater amongst our citizens, nationally, even worldwide, that Scientology actually controls this city. You council members know that that is 100% not true. I certainly know that that's not true, and yet that perception does exist. That perception, I believe, is our single biggest obstacle in achieving our long-term goals for our city. That perception scares away investors, developers, small business owners. It even scares away people who would otherwise probably move here. That perception plays a role in why our downtown core looks as it does. We have a lot of major and incredible initiatives going on in our city, initiatives that I personally am incredibly optimistic about. In order to give those initiatives the best possible chance of succeeding, I believe that we have to change the perception that everything around here is controlled by Scientology. It's not good enough that you guys know, it's not good enough that I know. The entire country has to know, and the world has to know. Despite all the property that Scientology has purchased around here, Scientology is actually a small, shrinking, desperate, failing organization that will eventually see their day in court and hopefully see their tax-exempt status revoked. I think that we need a presence on the council of people who are not afraid to say things like that and are willing to personally work towards accomplishing such goals, regardless of how long it takes. I certainly, through my work with the Aftermath Foundation, am doing everything in my power to accomplish those goals. Again, regardless of how long it takes. Mayor Hibbert, I spoke with you many months ago and I explained that I thought that my presence on the council and the way that I would use my platform as a council member could possibly change the perception of Scientology in this city. And I asked you if you thought that would be a valuable contribution to the council and to the city. And you responded that Scientology and the perception surrounding Scientology is the single biggest obstacle that you face in attracting world-class talent to our city. That is why I am running for City Council. To show the world that beyond owning a lot of empty buildings, Scientology doesn't actually have any power in this city. No one should be afraid to invest here. No one should be afraid to open a business here or to move here. I wish I had your support, and I'm sorry that I don't. But I promise you, I give you my word, if and when I win a seat on the council, I will work with you and all of the other council members regardless. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for citizens to be heard? Anyone else?
I'm Mr. Haluba, and I aggravate Frank Hibbert. I aggravate Mr. Hibbert to the point that he doesn't even want to respond to my emails. He's said that publicly. No acknowledgments, no replies. But that doesn't stop me from sending emails to him, and it shouldn't stop anyone else. Recently, I sent Mr. Hibbert a photograph of a Clearwater police officer that was published online, which was a semi-nude photograph. Mr. Hibbert, it was like a, like a minor miracle. He replied, and this is part of his reply. If I looked like that, I would never wear a shirt. Well, let's hope Mr. Hibbert keeps his clothes on in this environment, and when he's out in public, there's probably even, members of his own household who prefer he stay fully clothed. Just a foolish, ridiculous remark to be made. Mr. Jennings, I've sent you several questions via email recently. I'm still waiting for replies. I hope you're not one of those public officials like Mr. Hibbert who just decides certain people he's not going to reply to or, look at their comments or anything. But that's all right for Mr. Hibbert. My friend Mr. Slaughter's in the back. He presides over something that is not a misconception. He presides over a sloppy, rinky-dink, unnecessary, self-serving police department, which costs millions of dollars over what Pinellas County Sheriff's Office would charge to do a better job. I was kind of hoping, you know, when I saw Mr. Slaughter tonight, that maybe he was here to announce his retirement. We can only hope. The only other thing, one little tidbit, Mr. Jennings, I wouldn't get too tight or real friendly with Mr. Hibbert. It may not be good for your health.
Thank you, Mr. Haluba, always enlightening. That photo was of an officer off duty with a shirt off. So I want to make sure that, you know, on his off time, he had a shirt off. I want to make certain people understand what semi-nude means. So, anyone else for citizens to be heard?
Good evening, Mayor Hibbert and City Council. I'm here to give you a recap of the art exhibit, Clearwater's Big Cleanup. It is now fully installed. We did have our reception 2 weeks ago. Mayor Hibbert attended, as well as Councilmember Beckman. It was wonderfully received. Some of the locations that they are in are Clearwater High School, Clearwater Countryside Mall, Wyndham Grand, and Opal Sands, and among others. So I invite you all to go ahead and visit this exhibit. This is the goal of this exhibit, is to continue the conversation, that we be good custodians of our environment. The artists worked very hard. They specifically asked me to thank you all for the support. They feel that there's a tide that's changed in Clearwater and the arts are being valued, and so they wanted me to specifically thank you all. I am in the process of publishing the brochure with all its pieces, as well as the descriptions and its locations. So I invite you all to check that out. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Anyone else for citizens to be heard? All right. I would ask if there are any items by the public or...
How are you doing?
Great. How are you tonight?
I am here.
You could just state your name for the record.
My name is Jennifer Haithcock. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Jennifer Haithcock. I'll never get a chance to read my speech. My mailing address is 1345 Park Street. If you're not aware, this is the address to St. Vincent de Paul Soup Kitchen, as I live in my car. I'm here as just one face of the homeless here in Clearwater. I moved here 4 months ago to start a new life after finally realizing I was the product of a very toxic family full of sex, drugs, and alcohol, and have suffered greatly mentally, emotionally, physically, and sexually since childhood, and also for the weather, as I suffer from extreme chronic back pain from an accident that almost killed me when I was 17, walking miracle. I was here November 18th and introduced a petition. I started, you have to forgive me, my anxiety's a little...
You're fine.
I introduced a petition I started for the abuse I experienced at Safe Harbor Emergency Shelter, and asked that employees be re-educated with empathy training. I would also like to include all Pinellas County employees be educated as well. One misconception about the homeless is they're lazy and they're just making excuses. I'm here to tell my story. I'm a survivor of severe childhood trauma and sexual abuse, a bladder cancer survivor, and a generational curse breaker. I've been diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, complex PTSD, and after a nervous breakdown in 2018, intermittent explosive disorder, which is in remission, thank you, Jesus. And also the chronic back pain. I've been unable to work a regular job for 4 years now. I'm on disability, but I also do Uber Eats to help me with my food and gas. And would really just like to find a safe, affordable place to call my own, to stabilize myself and continue focusing on my healing and health. I'm already set up for multiple counseling sessions, vocational training, and I was informed about the the Advantage Pinellas Housing Compact Policy that was approved back in the spring of this year. Can you elaborate on the status and what, if anything, I could benefit from it?
I don't have the details from that. We can get some if you fill out the card.
Okay,
which you
yeah, I
have.
actually have.
Then somebody from our housing department can get
Okay.
back to you. Mr. Lane is actually in the audience for another agenda item.
Who's that?
Mr. Chuck Lane, who's from our housing department.
Okay, yeah, that would
Okay.
be great, because like I really ready to get out of my car.
Okay.
And also too, would any of the council members like to sign my petition after the meeting?
Well, you can ask everybody
I'm at
afterwards.
almost 390, because I was at 333 the last time, so. Thank you, and
Absolutely.
pray you guys have a great night.
You do the
Thank you.
same. Anyone else for citizens to be heard? All right. I would ask if there are any items on the consent agenda, items 6.1 through 6.9, to be removed by either the public or by the city council. Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Move to approve consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.9.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 7.1.
Approve the request from the owner of property addressed as 300 Jones Street, Clearwater, to vacate a portion of North Osceola Avenue described at certain portion of North Osceola Avenue lying west of the west boundary of Block 2, Jones subdivision of Nicholson's addition to Clearwater Harbor, as recorded in Plat Book Number 1, page 13, of the public records of Hillsborough County, Florida, of which Pinellas County was formerly a part, and lying east of the east boundary of Block 1 of said Jones subdivision of Nicholson's addition to Clearwater Harbor, and lying east of the east boundary of a portion of Lot B, Clovis C. Lutz subdivision, as recorded in Plat Book 35, page 76 of the public records of Pinellas County, Florida, and pass ordinance 9516-21 on first reading. Ms. Kivett.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tara Kivett, Engineering Director. In 2007, the city vacated the majority of North Osceola between Jones and Georgia Avenue and continued Osceola to the east. The vacation is the remaining portion of North Osceola. The applicant owns all the abutting properties, and they plan to use it as a private entrance to support development. They're planning on renovating the existing 7-story apartment building and turning it into a hotel. The city will retain easements. Staff have reviewed this request and have no objections. Any questions?
Questions for Ms. Kivett? Anyone from the public to speak to this item? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 7.1?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Margolis.
Ordinance number 9516-21, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating public right-of-way described as that certain portion of North Osceola Avenue lying west of the west boundary of Block 2, Jones subdivision of Nicholson's addition to Clearwater Harbor, as recorded in Plat Book 1, page 13 of the public records of Hillsborough County, Florida, of which Pinellas County was formerly a part, and lying east of the east boundary of Block 1 of said Jones subdivision of Nicholson's addition to Clearwater Harbor, and lying east of the east boundary of a portion of Lot B, Clovis C. Lutz subdivision, as recorded in Plat Book 35, page 76 of the public records of Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
Anyone to speak to the ordinance? Motion?
Move to pass ordinance 9516-21 on first reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 7.2.
Approve the request for the City of Clearwater vacating public right-of-way described as the certain portion of State Street abutting Lot 11 and Lot 18 of E.A. Marshall subdivision, as recorded in Plat Book 3, page 44 of the public records of Pinellas County, Florida, and pass ordinance 9517-21 on first reading. Ms. Kivett.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Tara Kivett again. This portion of State Street is a dead-end road that bisects State Street Park. City staff has requested this vacation to connect the park and help to eliminate illegal dumping. They plan to install a fence at both ends. We will grant utility easements to private utility companies, and we'll be presenting those to you at the next council meeting. City staff have reviewed and have no objections. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Gibbon? Councilmember Beckman.
Yeah, so we had a discussion on Monday, or I asked a question about where a fence might be, I guess. I thought it was going to be more of a gate to block.
There will be gates, so I think that they'll close after hours.
Okay.
Because the park is really just open during the day.
Okay,
So fencing, a combination of fencing and gates.
okay. That's all. Thanks.
Other questions from council? Anyone from the public to speak to this item? Please come forward, ma'am. If you could just give that to the clerk and state your name for the record.
My name is Janice Bazar. I actually live on State Street, right there. I am totally in support of closing the street. I am concerned, I heard it was a gate. We'd kind of like that road closed off for all traffic. What we have all day long is people driving down. Some of them, a few of them, drive down and dump. Thanks to the Rec and Park people, when we call about it, they come pick it up. But our thought was that the gate would close the road off so the traffic couldn't drive down there during the day. And we're totally supporting of that and think that it's a great move. So we don't walk down and find beds, dressers, paint cans, all sorts of things that people leave at the end of that road. So thank you for moving on this, and we're hoping the gate is permanently closed.
I don't have anybody here from Parks and Rec is the problem.
I am 95% sure that the gates will only be along the Betty Lane portion and that the rest will be fencing, but not positive.
It'll be along the Betty Lane portion.
The blue will have some gates and the red is fencing, but I'm not positive. So regardless,
The blue is already, this is Betty Lane, the blue is already fenced. The gate will be here.
You know what? We will get you the information.
We'll have to get that from Parks and Rec. I'm sorry.
This is first reading,
Okay.
so we're going to pass it on first reading. There'll be a second reading on December 16th, at which time we'll have the answers, and as long as you've given the card, we'll have Parks and Rec get back to you with what's anticipated, okay?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for coming out tonight. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.2.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Margolis.
Ordinance number 9517-21, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating public right-of-way described as that certain portion of State Street abutting Lot 11 and Lot 18 of E.A. Marshall subdivision as recorded in Plat Book 3, page 44 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
Anyone to speak to the ordinance? I have a motion.
Motion to pass ordinance 9517-21 on first reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 7.3.
Approve the proposed Second Amendment to an existing development agreement between the City of Clearwater and 411 ES LLC, which provides for certain changes to the conceptual site plan and elevations and increases the overall number of hotel units and height proposed for the subject site. Adopt Resolution 21-26 and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the same. Ms. Clayton.
Good evening, Gina Clayton, Planning and Development. This request is for Second Amendment to an existing hotel agreement. As Mr. Jennings indicated, it's for a property that's 1 acre in area that spans both sides of East Shore Drive and is located in the Marina District of Beach by Design. The proposed amendment essentially does 4 things. It increases the number of units from 74 to 91 through TDRs. It increases the height from 65 feet to 80 feet, as we discussed at Monday's work session. Beach by Design authorizes that height increase to 80 feet through lot consolidation. And because they're accessing that height bonus, they're obligated to construct the public boardwalk, which will be about 300 feet along the waterfront there. The amendment also proposes some changes in the previously approved mix of dock and marina spaces, and increases the parking spaces from 100 to 133. The Community Development Code allows development agreements to be amended through mutual consent, and the Planning and Development Department is recommending approval.
Any questions for Ms. Clayton on agenda item 7.3? Anyone from the public to speak to this item?
Mr. Mayor, as applicant, I think I did get a little time before
did.
public comment. And,
Everyone could silence their cell phones, please.
Mr. Mayor, Brian Unk, 625 Court Street on behalf of the applicant. Just to address anticipated public comments, I know we discussed this at length last time, so I'm not going to overuse my time. The practical implication of this amendment is to move 10 overnight accommodation units from Somerset to the heart of the tourist district, as it's referred to in Beach by Design, which is the East Shore Marina District. East Shore Marina District, as we discussed last time, has also been an underutilized area of staff priority for overnight accommodation units. Additionally, as we also discussed, this will have a significant positive impact in getting us to that goal of the public boardwalk, which is obviously a significant priority of Beach by Design. Two things that came up the last time. First, the ADA spaces in the parking garage. The parking garage is fully valet, so the ADA patrons will drop off their cars at the same location on at the lobby on the bottom floor and access the elevator just like everyone else. So there won't be any there will not be any conflict between ADA patrons and accessing their vehicles. Additionally, that's something that, obviously goes through full site plan review. And as we've discussed before, this is the very, very, very first conceptual step of the process. Having said that, I think the underground utilities issue will probably come up again tonight, which is why I want to spend just a few minutes discussing it. Your code, as we discussed the last time, section 3-912, requires that all utilities, including individual distribution lines, shall be installed underground unless such undergrounding is not practicable. That is always also a condition of approval of the development order. So not only is it the law, it's also added to the development order as a condition of approval. We are nowhere near determining whether it's practicable or not. We have to go through the CDB site plan approval. Then we go through fully engineered plans and the building permit process. The building inspectors will inspect the construction. If the hotel is constructed to plan, a certificate of occupancy will be issued. But we're not anywhere near the point where Duke would be able to determine whether it's practicable. The applicant doesn't determine if it's practicable. The city doesn't determine if it's practicable. The utility does. It's just a little bit of brief history, and I have a lot more information about this if it's necessary later. Some brief history. This is a letter from Duke Energy regarding the parking garage, the North Beach parking garage in 2014, and they explained that in this area, as Ms. Clayton addressed at the last meeting, they can't do it on a site-by-site basis. It's not piecemeal. Because of these distribution lines and the way they're situated, they would need to do the entire area. And in order to do that, Duke was requiring the city to enter into a firm cost estimate budget. In other words, Duke was requiring the city to guarantee funding up front for Duke to do the work to even tell them what the engineering and the plan would be. I have several emails between myself and Mr. Johnson from 2015. You see Mr. Horn, Ms. Aiken, Mr. Quillen, Ms. Kugalowski, Patty are all copied. And basically we were at the point where Duke Energy said, we're willing to provide the city with an estimate of what this is going to cost, but we're not going to do the engineering to determine that until the city guarantees it will pay us to do that. Mr. Johnson also put this item on a city council agenda for discussion in March of 2015. Apparently, according to this email, I was at that meeting. I don't remember it. If anyone wants more information about what was discussed at that meeting, they should watch that. But we were in discussions with Duke proactively as the developer of the parking garage along with the city on what would this take to do. And the majority of the city council at that time directed the staff not to commit the funding to do that. It would also, pursuant to this email from Duke, it would require all of the properties in that area to give easements, and none of those properties, other than my client, as far as I know, is actively going through the development review process. So it's a major undertaking. I'm not saying it's impossible. My client will definitely comply with the law, and the law is they underground the utilities if it's practicable, and that's the status at this point. So if there's additional information you'd like on that issue, I'm happy to address it, but just understand that it's a requirement, if practicable, and we will abide by that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public to speak to item 7.3?
Good evening, Council. Christine, Chris, now named Lafiera, spelled L-L-A-F-I-E-R-A, Michalek, M-I-C-H-A-L-E-K. Look it up. I live at 855 Bayway Boulevard, number unit 107, 707 Clearwater Point. This is perfect timing because you have before you a brief synopsis of this development. Started in 7/18/19, going through many, many changes. In 7/30, when the TDRs were applied for, there was a specific comment not being used to increase the allowable height of the project. You're already moving towards increasing. Let's move beyond that. Then in 11/20, Ms. Clayton wrote the long development agreement, which was 5 pages, and it included what Mr. Brian just brought up after there are 2 things, that there has to be an inspection of the boardwalk, but it doesn't say who's going to maintain it after the boardwalk is done. Will we be maintaining it? And this utilities issue. Highlighted there is a copy of exactly what is said, what Mr. Onks just referred to. And my issue is this, and myself and other people believe, if we believe that Clearwater should be bright and beautiful, it should provide an ambiance that is bright and beautiful. At the bottom there, you have Coronado Street, a picture, which shows all the underground utilities. Lovely. You drive down there. To the right, you have the street that we're talking about right now, and it is a hodgepodge of all the different wires. That is not bright and beautiful. It's ugly. I do know for a fact, even though Mr. Onks has said that it was impractical, last meeting he said, and when Councilwoman Beckman said, what does that mean? He basically said the owner will not pay for it. That's not impractical to me. What's impractical, if there was a granite underneath there or there was water, he did mention today, Mr. Onks, that he's going to check into this and that he has letters from Duke Utilities. However, I do know in conversation with Billy Day, who lives on that street, that he has underground utilities, and he literally did check in to see if they would do that. So there seems to be a little conflict here. So I end up with this. They say that it's impractical. To that I say, what? Excuse me. We're granting flexibility. We're granting waivers. We're giving gifts to the developer to include increased revenue. And what is the developer giving us besides the future taxes, besides using it for our tourists? I'm sharing with you that you are the ones who are dictating what's going to happen to We Are Bright and Beautiful. So I'm asking you to demand that not as when it's going to be done, when the construction takes place, that underground utilities are part of it. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Good evening. Bill Johnson, 2694 Redford Court in Clearwater. I'd like to thank Mr. Onks for bringing in the additional and corrected information. He had previously said that Duke literally said that they would not underground. There are several instances and situations that could I'll provide for undergrounding in that area. And I would remind the council that they were done in other areas of the beach, and there's an opportunity in that area, and would urge you to follow up on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly in closing, just to address a couple comments, and my apologies to Ms. McKaylick, because there must have been a misunderstanding in what I said. I must not have been clear enough, but under no circumstances am I saying, one, that my client won't pay to underground the utilities, or two, that it's impractical. What I'm saying is the law requires my client to underground the utilities if it's practicable, and we're not at that stage yet, and we will follow the law and we will do that, and the city will make sure that we do that. If the city would like to enter into a larger holistic discussion with Duke, as it did in 2015, about what it would take to underground that entire area, I think that's something you should look at, and we encourage you to do that. That doesn't in any way impact our development. As it relates to Mr. Day's property, I also have some emails that were public record from that time period. This is from Sam Rowe. He's a distribution engineer for Duke, and basically Mr. Day was upset with the two poles that were placed by the courtyard, and apparently there was no way to underground that feed to the courtyard because the distribution lines are across the street, and there was no way to get it from across the street to underground it. So I know that was mentioned by Ms. McKaylick, so I wanted you to understand that there was a large discussion. It was, again, Mr. Horn was involved, Ms. Aiken, there was a lot of emails back and forth. It's all public record. So I wanted to clarify those things for you. And as it relates to the height and what you're getting from the developer, again, what you're giving is 8 units from the hotel density reserve. My client is buying 28 additional units out of his pocket to put them away from other areas into this area where the city's prioritized, and you're getting a public boardwalk. So I do think, much like Beach Walk, not to the extent of Beach Walk, but to a certain extent close to Beach Walk, this is a very significant mutually beneficial relationship. Thank you.
Mr. Owens, do you have an estimate of roughly what that boardwalk costs?
I have no idea. I don't know. I can also tell you in terms of upkeep, we enter in, that was the other thing I was going to mention, we enter into a boardwalk easement, which is a form drafted by the city. The city is responsible for the daily maintenance of the boardwalk. The developer is responsible for the structural maintenance of the boardwalk. So any kind of replacement repair is the developer. Daily maintenance, picking up the trash, that type of stuff is the responsibility of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Council questions or comments? Vice Mayor.
I think it was just kind of what Mr. Ronk said. I'm going to, a slight correction. He made a comment that staff has not prioritized hotel development in this area necessarily. And I'm not sure it's not that staff hasn't prioritized it. It's property owners have not come forward with a whole lot of opportunities. And this is definitely one, and I'm sure as the process has shown, staff is very pleased with what is being brought forward. So, I mean, most of the attention has been, south of the roundabout for a lot of this stuff. But, this East Shore Drive is a area that has just been waiting to really get an infusion, and this is it. And waiting. So, but with that, I'm good.
Other questions or comments? Councilmember Beckman?
So when Mr. Ong said, or when Ms. Michalak had said, the applicant is getting height, it's getting more units in order to maximize profits. We're giving that developer 8 units, and what we're getting back is a public boardwalk. And then part of the calculus that you said was an advantage was that he's buying 28 additional units. And so that would be good for us because of more economic activity down there with people being in those I mean, how are we
Well,
viewing
also
that?
property value, the cost of the project. Come on up.
So the taxes that'll be paid with 28 more that this person is purchasing.
Correct.
Councilmember, just real briefly, if I might respond, and thank you, and I did want to, I'm sorry again, I'm apparently misspeaking left and right over here. What I said or meant to say was the staff has wanted these units, overnight accommodation units, in this district. And one of the things that they had said years ago was if they might even try to amend the hotel density reserve to restrict them to this area. So to answer your question directly, one of the benefits is moving those 28 units to an underutilized area and moving them away from other areas that maybe they wouldn't be as well utilized. Thank you.
This is purely an overnight accommodation area and restaurants. So I think that's one of the great benefits, along with the boardwalk. And that's why I'm going to support it. Councilmember Albritton?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great project, and like Councilman Hamilton said, you know, this area's been waiting for this a long time. I remember there was a big project that was going to take place, and they were going to take out that whole street for the project, and that fell through years ago. That was when somebody was trying to buy all the properties and make one big kind of master development project that would go all the way to Bell Harbor. That was kind of exciting, but you know, not everything that's planned happens. So you kind of got to grab it when you can, and this is a good project for this area, and I think it'll help this area, and it'll take away that density where we always have problems in North Beach. So that'll take it away, and we won't probably be worrying about that at a later date. But and this boardwalk's going to look great because it's going to connect with the the other park that Clearwater has there, and then the courtyard as well has a boardwalk. So it's going to be a nice area for people to not only tourists but people to visit when they go to Clearwater Beach.
Councilmember Bunker?
Yeah, I agree. The property itself and the boardwalk are absolutely beautiful. And I support this. I would hope when the time comes and we get to that point, if it's possible for us to do the undergrounding of the utilities, that would make the area much more beautiful. But as it is now, I'm very behind this.
Well, it is always something we can look into the undergrounding. We would most likely have to participate, just so everyone knows. It is not inexpensive.
Oh, yeah.
So, any other comments? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve item 7.3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Margolis.
Resolution number 21-26, resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending a development agreement between the City of Clearwater and 411 ES LLC, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak to the resolution? Have a motion?
Move to adopt resolution 21-26.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 8.1. That's you, Mr. Margolis.
Sorry. Ordinance number 9509-21, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real property located on the north side of Lakeview Road, approximately 435 feet east of Brookside Drive, whose post office address is 1882 Lakeview Road, Clearwater, Florida, 33764, into the corporate limits of the city, and redefining the boundaries of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak to this item? Have a motion?
Motion to adopt ordinance 9509-21 on second reading.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 8.2.
Ordinance number 9510-21, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real property located on the north side of Lakeview Road, approximately 435 feet east of Brookside Drive, whose post office address is 1882 Lakeview Road, Clearwater, Florida, 33764, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as residential low, RL, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak to item 8.2? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt ordinance 9510-21 on second reading.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 8.3.
Ordinance number 9511-21, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real property located on the north side of Lakeview Road, approximately 435 feet east of Brookside Drive, whose post office address is 1882 Lakeview Road, Clearwater, Florida 33764, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as low-medium density residential LMDR, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak to item 8.3? Motion.
Move to adopt ordinance 9511-21 on second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 9.1.
Approve additional loan financing in the amount not to exceed $1.8 million for an 81-unit affordable housing development project at 610 Franklin Street, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the same. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Chuck Lane, Economic Development and Housing Department. At Monday's work session, I ran through the two-plus year history on this project. If you'd like me to recap any of that, I certainly will. Getting directly to the issue at hand, we are under contract under a development agreement with Blue Sky Communities for them to acquire property at 610 Cleveland Street. That, of course, is the site of the former Fire Station 45. And they will construct an 81-unit affordable housing tax credit project. Since the project gained approval from Florida Housing Finance Corporation, we've seen a $5.4 million increase in total development costs. This is mostly caused by an increase in construction costs during the pandemic. Blue Sky made adjustments to fill a portion of that funding gap and is looking to the city and Pinellas County to fill the remainder. At the October 18th CRA meeting, you all discussed the issue and asked me to provide a funding strategy for additional contributions that the city could make to the project. The staff recommendation is to provide an additional $1.8 million in loans from a combination of State Housing Initiative Partnership Program funding, Home Investment Partnership Program funding, and Home American Rescue Plan funds. This will leave the Housing Division with reasonable balances in each of the funding programs to conduct our typical business. As I mentioned on Monday, if approved tonight, staff will need to prepare a substantial amendment to our Consolidated Action Plan to reprogram existing funds for these expenditures. Council will need to approve this amendment before closing on these loans. I anticipate presenting that amendment probably February at the earliest. Sean Wilson, president of Blue Sky Communities, is here this evening. Should you have any questions for him? That concludes my presentation. I'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Any questions? Vice Mayor?
Explain to me, Chuck, what will happen. Right now, the development costs have gone up almost $5.5 million due to the pandemic, supply chain issues, everything else. By the time the entire process takes place, hopefully the pandemic's over, supply chain gets resolved, and the materials are more readily accessible. And if that price comes down, how does that affect our bottom line number? Do we get credit for when those prices actually do come, if and when those prices actually do come down before or during construction?
We can certainly work that into an agreement with Blue Sky, where if that happens, we would want to claw back some of that stuff. I'm assuming Pinellas County would probably want a piece of that pie as well. We'll see how that shakes out, but I think that's a very reasonable ask. We've actually discussed that. I believe Blue Sky is willing to accept that type of arrangement.
Okay. I'm seeing a head nod out there. So. Okay.
Councilmember Beckman.
Thank you for doing all that work, Chuck. I'm super excited about this project. I had one question, though. If Blue Sky does not get funding, the expected funding from the county, who makes a decision on what goes on with that property? Is it come back to us to look at it again? And
I'm not planning on recommending any more funding to this project out of our housing funds.
Okay.
That would be a council decision. There could be other funding, but that would be a council decision. But I'm not. This is about as far as we can go with housing funds.
So if we approve this tonight, which I hope we do, and then Blue Sky goes to the county, what's the time frame from hearing back from the county, do you think?
I know the county, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know when that approval is, but the county did email today or yesterday that staff would recommend approval of the project.
Good. Okay. That was all. I want to make sure that, if the county doesn't allocate money, then Blue Sky can't do something different with the property and not keep it at entirely 80% and below AMI, right? I mean,
They can't, you said, correct?
correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that was it. Thank you. Oh, I did have one more. So you're saying we need to reprogram existing funds in light of movement of funds to this project. What existing funds are going to be affected? What other programs are going to be affected?
Our plan has, I don't have it in front of me, but our plan has reserves funds for various sources. So much money for homeowner rehab, for rental rehab, for new construction of rental, for new construction of homeowner housing. So it's an estimate of how projects might come to us and how we might fund them. We just have to change all that. HUD won't let us move this money until our plan is consistent with what we're trying to do. We can deviate from it from some degree, but there are certain things that trigger a substantial amendment, and this would.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions? Comments? Anyone from the public to speak to this item? The applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council and staff. I want to thank staff for their generous
If you could
recommendation.
just identify yourself for the record.
I'm sorry, Sean Wilson, president of Blue Sky Communities. I want to thank staff for their generous recommendation and council and the mayor for your support up to this time. And Blue Sky stands ready to help be part of the solution to solve the affordable housing issues here in Clearwater. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Anyone from the public to speak to this item? I'm going to close public comment. Do you have something else, Mr. Lane?
No, sir.
Okay.
Unless you have questions for me.
I don't think there's any questions. I am not going to support this item tonight. As I said in the work session on Monday, I think this is a mistake. I think our plans for downtown with City Hall are very much up in the air with PSTA not getting the funds to do the new depot. So that may remain for a very long time on Park and Garden and Pierce. And I think strategically this is next to the police department, across from our MSB parking garage and in proximity. And this is a significant subsidy for the project. I'm for finding more affordable housing units. I just think we can find them elsewhere in the downtown and use this money in a better way. So I know I'm going to lose this vote, but I am not changing my mind because I believe I am right. So with that, I'll accept the motion.
Well, before I make the motion, and I'm probably willing to make that motion, I in some ways agree with your position, but in the overall picture, I respectfully disagree because this is a very unique property in its physical location. My family having spent almost 60 years in the hospitality industry, I know that especially and even more so recently, housing is a large expense for people that work in that industry. Affordable housing is a very important element of every community. And given that, this is an opportunity to address some of that. I just don't think this is a strategic property in the overall picture of what Clearwater is trying to do. I also don't believe, I know there's some belief that Scientology could be interested in this property as part of a land swap down the line, but I'm not sure. I know that if my recollection is correct, when we put this out to RFP, there was some interest by Scientology, but it was for another nonprofit facility. And I'm sorry, but our downtown has plenty of nonprofit office space, and we don't need any more. And beyond that, they did not express any interest for another use for that property. So while this is not a perfect, and nothing is perfect, but it checks more positive boxes than it checks negative boxes. Therefore, I will support it.
Make a motion.
And unless nobody else has Mr. Albritton has something to say apparently before I.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I respectfully disagree with
It's
you, as
great.
you know.
Just make the motion and second. I literally have somewhere to go, and I don't care to hear it.
Okay.
So,
I move that we approve agenda item 9.1.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
I respectfully say aye.
Opposed? Nay. 4-1 with the mayor in opposition. 9.2.
Approve a supplemental one work order to Cardno Inc. of Clearwater, Florida, to complete expanded ground penetrating radar survey at St. Matthew's Baptist Church Cemetery in the amount of $48,223, increasing the overall work order from $87,888 to $136,111, pursuant to the request for qualifications RFQ 26-19, Engineer of Record Consulting Services, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the same. Mr. DeSico.
And I am going to turn this item over to the vice mayor because I have to recuse myself.
Okay. I actually get to do something as vice mayor.
You just made a motion.
Wow. Any questions for staff about this? Or staff, would you like to make, is there any additional presentation on top of what you made on Monday?
No, there isn't anything additional.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments or questions about this? Anybody in the public that would like to speak to this item? If not,
I move to approve agenda item 9.2.
Second?
and with no further comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposes unanimously with the mayor abstaining
9.3.
or recusing. So,
Accept a sidewalk easement from Sarah L. Williamson for the construction, installation, and maintenance of a public sidewalk on real property located at 1157 Russell Street, and adopt Resolution 21-35. Ms. Kivett.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Again, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tara Kivett, Engineering Director. This easement will allow the city to construct and maintain a sidewalk on their property. The sidewalk will connect to existing sidewalk and provide some erosion control on the property as well. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Kivett?
No.
Anyone from the public to speak to item 9.3? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 9.3?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Margolis.
Resolution number 21-35, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, accepting a sidewalk easement from Sarah L. Williamson for the construction, installation, and maintenance of city sidewalk, providing an effective date.
Anyone to speak to the resolution? Do I have a motion?
Move to adopt resolution 21-35.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 9.4.
Accept the assignment of a drainage easement from Pinellas County, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, as recorded in Official Records Book 2780, page 68 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, for the construction, installation, and maintenance of a city drainage facilities on real property located at 2701 via Cipriani, and adopt Resolution 21-36. Ms. Gibb.
Thank you. This drainage easement and stormwater ditch is currently being maintained by Pinellas County, with the adjacent property owners and a majority of the area utilizing this drainage easement, contributing stormwater fees to the city. The city has requested that this easement be transferred from the county to the city. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Kivett? Anyone from the public to speak to this item?
Yes, sir.
Did you fill out a card, sir?
Yes.
Okay. If you could just state your name for the record.
My name's Mike Duffy. I reside at Bay Aristocrat Village at 18675 US Highway 19 North, 33764. I didn't know this was on the agenda this past Monday. But I found out about it, and I've talked to people in our development. Being a resident and a board member of the community, they've asked me to come and speak and ask a few questions. On this assignment of a drainage easement, the questions that we have are maintaining the positive flow of water in the ditch to prevent a stagnant mosquito breeding ground and foul smell. People can't sit in their backyards because it's just foul water. I know in the Monday meeting I watched the video and there was a question about what do you call it?
Pitching?
Making the drainage steeper so it would flow out to the bay. The other item was trimming the overgrowth of vegetation causing damage to our fence and homes. And the Brazilian pepper trees that grow quite rapidly, it needs to be a regularly scheduled maintenance. Unfortunately, I don't have pictures for you today, but if you were to look at this ditch, there's water in some spots. Other places it's just muck. So it's a breeding ground. The most important issue we have, however, is not the mosquitoes or the foul smell. At the east end, where it empties into the bay, there is erosion taking place on both sides of the ditch. This is affecting our properties, and we're going to lose our new fence and ground into this ditch as the storm waves come in. So we're asking if the city takes over this assignment of this property, what can be done about it to protect our property values? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming out. I think you're probably going to get better service. First of all, you pay your stormwater fees to us, and so that's one of the reasons the county wants to get rid of this obligation. Ms. Kivett, do you want to address any of those questions, or are you going to need to get back to the gentleman?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So Ms. Call, if you can make sure that Ms. Kivett gets that information. Anybody else to speak to this item? To have a motion?
Move approval of agenda item 9.4.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Margolis.
Resolution number 2136, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, accepting the assignment of a drainage easement from Pinellas County, Florida, for the construction, installation, and maintenance of city drainage facilities, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak to this resolution? A motion?
Move to adopt resolution 21-36.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 9.5.
Appoint one member to the Neighborhood and Affordable Housing Advisory Board as a citizen who resides within the City of Clearwater with a term to expire November 30, 2025. Council members, after the work session, we did reach out to Ms. Santiago, and I would like to make a correction. So yes, because she did meet, or rather she missed 3 meetings at the beginning of the year, it turns out it was COVID-related. She did not contract COVID, but it was exposure, and out of safety precautions, she decided to not attend those meetings. That was 1. 2, she did confirm her continued commitment to the board, and so she obviously also saw the meeting, and so she knows where council's concerns stand, but she is fully committed, and she said her work schedule will not be an issue.
Any questions for Ms. Call? Comments? Councilmember Beckman?
Yeah, again, this is a little tough, but I think Melissa Coley would serve this board well with her unique experiences and qualifications. I think she would be a good fit here. But if I don't have support of 2 of you, then I'm perfectly fine with Ms. Santiago as well.
Councilmember Bunker?
Well, I also would like to see Melissa have a chance, but if there's not a third, Ms. Santiago is perfectly fine with me too.
Oh, I think Melissa will get a chance at some point, but I really, given the factors involved with Ms. Santiago. I feel comfortable in I would rather see her get a reappointment. And when there's another availability, I would say Ms. Coley would be at the top of that list.
And I agree with that. I don't want to see her taken off the board, especially if there was a COVID-related incident. You know, it's not fair. Come on. She volunteered to get on the board. I know she wants to be on there because, I mean, when you start talking to people in about them in public, she could have shied off if she really had, second thoughts, but, that she told you, no, she really wants to be on the board. I say give her a chance, reappoint her.
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Ms. Santiago to the board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I didn't hear y'all.
Aye.
I said aye.
Okay. 5-0. Anything else, Mr. Margolis?
No, sir.
Anything else, Mr. Jennings? Closing comments, I'll start from my left.
Oh, okay. Well, we had the article in the paper the other day about the meeting that you and John and David had with David Miscavige. I'm happy to see that there's communication, and I'm also happy that we're arranging a time for Mr. Jennings and Mr. Margolis and I to sit down with Mike Rinder and discuss what dealing with David Miscavige's life. I would hope that if we do a swap, and let me, by the way, say that I've gone on the record many times here saying that if there's a deal that makes sense with Scientology, I'm okay with it. I'm not going to oppose it. If it makes sense for the city, I'm behind it. I do, however, think that if Miscavige still wants this piece of property, and he's filling us with thoughts of all the wonderful things he can do for Clearwater, that we would put that piece of property in a trust and have Mr. Miscavige come through first, and then say, okay, it's been sitting here for you, enjoy it. I don't think we can just trust Mr. Miscavige to say, give me what I want. After all, I have all this leverage over you. And then I'll redo the entire downtown. You can have whatever you want. I just think that's an important thing. Other than that, thank you so much. Have a nice night.
Councilmember Beckman.
This week, Monday after the work session, I made my first trip to Tallahassee as an elected official and met with legislators from our region, as well as some lobbyists and different municipal leaders. It was their last committee week in Tallahassee before their session starts January 11th. So that was a real eye-opener for me. I learned a lot. It was a very productive trip. One of the resounding messages I got from other municipal leaders who were there, and I was there as part of the Suncoast League of Cities, but there's also Florida League of Cities and other municipalities throughout the state, is that it is imperative that residents get informed and engaged about what's going on at the state level. And that's a big priority of mine. I have a newsletter and a website, but I also wanted to say that our communications director, Joelle Castelli, has put on our myclearwater.com website a legislative agenda 2022 page. And I would encourage you to go there and check out legislation that will affect our city and track it, and we'll see how it moves along once the session starts. So please become educated, and thank you so much for our city and our communications department for taking that lead to help inform residents. And then the second thing I wanted to say tonight was, and this is a little overdue, and I should have done it earlier, and it just, but I just wanted to say publicly a thank you to our Assistant City Manager, Micah Maxwell, for doing such a good job of filling in after Mr. Horn's sudden death, and keeping us all on track. And And just really doing a nice job, I think, in pulling back and looking at our city as a whole. He and I had a number of great discussions as our new city manager, John Jennings, stepped into that role. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you, Micah. It was really nice to meet with you weekly in that role. And have a good weekend. I'm excited because my parents are coming in tonight. My husband's picking them up right now, so I get them for a week.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Councilmember Albritton.
Yeah, just a lot of things going on in December on the calendar. Everybody be safe, drive carefully, and have a good December. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I will, for everyone's knowledge that isn't already aware of it, I will be at the next work session, but I will not be in attendance at the next meeting. My family is taking I'm taking my children on a family Disney cruise, and the dates coincide. I have to be out. I will miss the council meeting, but been here doing this for 14 years, and family still comes first. But I wish everybody a great holiday season, regardless of what religion you practice, and have a great holiday season and safe new year, and we're going to make 22 a really exciting time.
Thank you. I just want to thank our police department, fire department. We had a menorah lighting out on Beach Walk last Sunday. It was a great event with huge attendance. Also want to thank the England family, who made a very generous contribution to Ruth Eckerd Hall for the new England Family Garden, which is on the east side of Ruth Eckerd Hall, and it is stunning. If you get a chance to see it when you're over at Ruth Eckerd Hall, I think everybody's going to enjoy it. We always talk about the Ruth Eckerd Hall experience. This is one more attribute that adds to that. And then finally, I want to thank the Salvation Army. They had a gingerbread competition today, which was raising money for homeless families, specifically mothers with children. And so we thank them for all the money that they raised today and all the sponsors. With that, we're adjourned. God bless.